Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today you're going to be seeing a collection of videos over the last few weeks that have made me cry inside the game. So I guess you're going to be watching all of the hundreds of games that I've played, right? World of Tanks does that have that effect. Maybe not just on me, maybe on you, at least some of the time, right? World of Tanks is one of those games that we love to hate and hate to love, alright? You do feel like you get stuck in, but I think that even after all these years, this game still makes me feel like pumped up right until the last moment. And in this game, in the M5Y, that's exactly what it's going to be like today. Later on, you're going to be seeing some games and some different kinds of tanks, so hang around in the video. There's going to be one for everyone. There's going to be a game for everyone inside this video today. So the M5Y, is this a good tank? Yeah, on a ridgeline, it's pretty darn good. It is got 10 degrees of gun depression, really good turret as well. It does have a little bit of a weak point on top, so you've got to just make sure that you raise your gun a little bit after you're going to receive the reply. But the tank's really awkward in a way because you've got to get your shots out against your opponents, otherwise why are you even playing it in the first place? The tank does have a choice of two guns. There's a gun that has 360 alpha and there's a gun that has like 440 alpha. Big difference, right? And you think alpha is king in World of Tanks, I gotta use the big gun, right? But actually, in this case, I don't think so at all. Not only do you have way worse penetration on your gold rounds, I think you've got 300 instead of 315, so you might not be penetrating the Type 5 Heavy, which wouldn't be much use. You've got worse aim time, accuracy, turret traverse dispersion, so maybe you have to use vert stabs on the vehicle instead of being able to get away with them without, like I managed to. You've got worse penetration on your standard rounds. You don't have APCR rounds on as your standard as well, so you've got worse shell velocity there. All in all, the big gun sucks at everything apart from the alpha damage and the DPM as well. So I can't understand why some people actually even use the big gun on this vehicle. For me personally, this tank, if you want to use the big gun, just go play something that has big alpha and is also hold down as well. Maybe like an M454 or something. Just doesn't seem right for me on this vehicle. And I think with the relatively faster firing 105mm, I believe, that you get on this vehicle with that 360 alpha, it does feel decent. It feels decent indeed. I do enjoy this gun for just clunking through vehicles. You get some pretty good damage per minute, kind of like what the Super Conqueror had before it was nerfed, and you got enough penetration. Not like a T110E5. On a T110E5 with that 340 heat pen, that makes this 315 look awful. And you're going to really start to see against these Type 5 heavies that if I'd had more pen, like for example, that would have definitely gone in with a T110E5. And a few of these chancy shots, we see a few ricochets off their cupola and so on and so forth. Oh man, how did that one go in? And I can tell you, I'm going to pause the video here for a second because that is insanely unlucky. He has actually managed to hit the bar there, even though it's not quite showing. He's hit the bar on the top of this vehicle, that tiny little ridge as it goes along. Ridiculous shot as it showed inside battle hits. But I'm clunking these Type 5 heavies. Maybe they just got their first super lucky shot against me. But it looks like I've done 2,500 damage, literally, to these two Type 5 heavies here. Unfortunately, another shot goes into the lower plate, and now I'm at half hit points. But again, 3k done. That's at least one of their tanks pretty much crippled at the start of this battle. So feeling now that I was really worried about the 13105 and friends making their way across the center, I wanted to go and try and reinforce this flank. The last thing you want in a vehicle, which has a horrendous side profile, look at this, is to be caught out in the flank. And quickly, one of the advantages of this vehicle, which is the fact that its turret is independent to the hull, is completely mitigated as soon as you're getting flanked. I keep a few HE rounds pretty much in all my vehicles, apart from ones that have really high pressure on the ammo, and they're going to start to really pay off here. Now, not only do we have a great rate of fire, we're also packing in the alpha damage as well, and all three HE shells going against that FE405, and while they were full health probably about like 15 seconds ago, they are now a one-shot for me. And an FE405 isn't dangerous anymore when you can manage to finish it off in a single shot. It looks like this Gorilla is going to be coming up. The Leopard is going to be pushing forwards. The FE405 luckily gets shut down by my Manticore. And this is where just being aggressive and just absolutely pumping damage per minute into your opponents is the only way to be able to get through a game. Even though we've done 5,300 damage in the first 4 minutes of this battle, make that 5,600 damage, my team is still down by 5,000 hit points and 5 tanks. How the snowballs like this happen is sometimes beyond me. And oh dear, I just thought, it's over, right? Couldn't manage to get through this. Bit of an unlucky shell from the Gorilla in the side. Annoying high roll on the move pen from the Leopard. I'm asking for help from the Manticore to hold this ridgeline, to try and keep anything going that we can. And I was just hoping that the FE405 on my team was going to be able to get some big chunky shots through. And they do. They managed to finish off the T-57 heavy spotted down below. I'm trying to finish off the gorilla that was last spotted. And oh dear, here comes the gorilla. Okay, finish off the leopard as quick as possible. Just pray, 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 pray. The tracking managed to keep us in it. Don't want to get rammed here by the gorilla. Thinking about retracking them there just so I can be able to get the side of this tank, because their reload, it's bad, but it's not that bad to be able to finish me off. Looks like I fat finger my my mouse there a little bit, unfortunately, with auto aiming at the gorilla there, which isn't good when I'm trying to go for his tracks. But oh yeah, baby, that's what I'm talking about. Multiple tanks handled. 7,000 damage in 5.5 minutes with 400 assistance as well. And I was thinking, maybe, just maybe, there's still a blooming chance that we can deal with this. So I tell my Manticore to go kill the self-propelled gun. And the reason for that is the T-92 is going to splash me, right? Or the T-92 is going to splash the FE-405. So I think the best thing that Manticore can do right now is to go kill the artillery and hopefully manage to come back to see if we can get into this game. Now, the enemies are most likely going to be slinking right along this alleyway here, which is why I wanted to try and get into a position to be able to get some shots into them. To put one into the side of a full health 277. And in this situation, I've got to hope the FE-405 is going to help me and just keep clunking whatever's in front of me right now. Unfortunately, it looks like that shell goes into the ridge line. Luckily, they're firing heat and they don't manage to penetrate me. Right now, because I've only got 72 hit points, I actually need to reverse to make sure they don't ram me to death, and I only take 50 there. And now I want to get close and try and use my gun to absorb the shell, but I don't want to ram this 277 anymore because I'm down to 27 hit points. Now it's about just trying to use my gun to avoid the shell while still trying to face hug this vehicle without also ramming myself to death and get multiple shots in. And we tried. 8,800 damage in less than 7 minutes in this battle with some assistance in this, I'd say, B or C grade heavy. And while the Manticore got the job done against the artillery, unfortunately it wasn't to be. This game, it goes as you would inevitably think it would be, with an FE-405 having all of the alpha damage, but doesn't matter when it's dealing with multiple opponents. GG. Unwinnable game? Possibly. Did I make some mistakes? You could argue that maybe that poke play against the gorilla was a little bit awkward, and if I'd kept that 750, maybe I could have done something with it. But did you notice just how aggressive we had to be at every opportunity to try and keep our team in this game, and it just wasn't enough. So next up, I'm going to be playing in the Object 268. This is a vehicle that I think is really underrated inside the game. The 268 just has fantastic ammunition available for it. I have two builds for this vehicle, one with gun rammer, vents, and coated optics. So not only have I got maximum firepower, I've also got the vision to be able to see my opponents. One of the only downsides to this tank is it doesn't quite have enough view range to be able to get away with not using coated optics at all. My second build on this tank, I think I use a rotation device for just being able to get around, turn the vehicle faster, and being able to snapshot my opponents into Kingdom Come. So with the 268, I want to do nothing more than get forwards into a bush where I can start to really just go to town on heavies. And this is where like 395 heat pen, you really can't fault it. The heat rounds on this tank are a tool, and I would not recommend playing tier 10 tank destroyers unless you are ultra free to play and you just want to have the extra pen on your standard rounds. But realistically, firing gold in a tier 10 tank destroyer is one of the only things that you can do to make the vehicles just super effective. The penetration that you can use on vehicles like this is just a touch above. And the E100 turret, it might as well just be butter for my shells. It's going to go straight through, the softest thing imaginable right now compared to the heat that the 268 has for an opportunity. So in this game, oh man, I mean, this is a gun line, and this is just a beautiful position for a non-turreted tank destroyer, or even for a turreted one. Anytime that you think that you're going to get people just in front of you, this position's beautiful. The only position that really counters this is if an opponent manages to go over here. However, that position's quite vulnerable to locations over here, so I wouldn't really recommend using that position all that much unless you're in truly an incredible vehicle that's hiding its lower plate and has great upper hull armor. Like an IS-7, but even if you take an IS-7 over there, you might not have the gun depression that you would need. And these heat rounds, oh baby, 395. I'll let you in on a little bit of trivia about this vehicle, and that is that back in the day, this thing actually had more heat pen than it has now. It used to have 450 heat pen. That's right, it was even more than the Jagdpanzer E100. This had the highest penetration that there ever was in World of Tanks. 450 was able to like auto aim pretty much like an IS-7 and just go through every time. And that shows you just how god tier it was. It was pretty much just like an I win kind of button. Think about a Jagdpanzer E100. If you fired heat with a Jagdpanzer E100, you'll know that you basically negate your opponent's armor, right? Now imagine a Jagdpanzer E100 with another 30 millimeters of pen. That's like going from the equivalent of like an Object 279E at 320 pen all the way up to an M60 with its 350 pen. Those tanks hit very different. They're different grades of vehicles now, especially the 279E has had its ammunition nerfed. And there's no doubt that the old 268 was a different kind of animal with what it was able to do back in the day. So far, just a dream game, really. Unfortunately, I took a shot to the weak point on top of the 268. Got to watch out for that. We're up to 4,600 damage. And our opponents just seem to just keep trying to poke. And I love it. They can keep trying to poke. I hope they poke quicker, though, because I'm a little bit worried about what's happening in the woods. Looks like our opponents are about to start to win that area, and as soon as they do, because we have these useless mediums that are sitting in sniping positions, then we're not going to do very well. Man, this is about as easy as damage gets in World of Tanks. It's the dream scenario for a tank destroyer, sitting in a position which your opponents don't expect because your camera rating is good enough. This vehicle, I only just realized, gets one crazy field mod, and I had no idea about this until literally this week. Medium tanks lose 25% of their camo when they're moving. Tank destroyers lose 40% of their camo rating when they're moving. However, the 268 gets a field mod that allows it to get 5% extra camo rating, or actually does it? Maybe I'm making it up now. Oh no, I'm sorry, this one doesn't get the extra 5% camo, but there are versatile tank destroyers in the game that do. For example, the 268 version 5 with the turnable turret, and that increases that vehicle's camo rating by 5%. The T30 also gets that kind of a camo improvement, and when you use that on those tanks, it isn't just 5% when moving. Sorry, it isn't 5% when stationary. I've given the game away. It's also 5% when you're moving as well, which means those versatile tank destroyers with the 5% concealment get a huge boost to their camo when moving, which can make them incredibly sneaky. And while the 268 doesn't quite get to those areas of sneakiness, at least when I'm sitting in a bush, this vehicle's camo rating is pretty darn decent indeed. And actually, you know what? I might be making a double mistake here, so 1 second. Yeah, I goofed. I was right with the 268. I double guessed myself. This vehicle does indeed get the penultimate field mod, which allows it to get 5% extra concealment at the expense of 2 kilometers reverse speed, something that I would 10 out of 10 recommend to do, because it takes this tank into having like the camo of a light tank when it's stationary, and when you're moving, kind of more having the camo rating of a medium. Whereas without that field mod, it's kind of got more of the camo rating of, say, like a probably something like a Centurion Action 10, maybe even possibly just under a Leopard with regards to that. So you can make this tank incredibly sneaky. So this has just been the dream game so far, really. We've managed to always be in the right position, always managed to stay hidden, and all of our shots are going where we aim them. That's because this vehicle, it's very accurate. 0.33 accuracy. It's a very consistent gun inside World of Tanks, and I think this tank is very underrated. And hopefully we're going to overmatch the lower half of the hull there of the T124, and suddenly up to 7,000 damage in the first 6.5 minutes of this game. I was feeling pretty chipper, but our opponents have unfortunately pushed through the woods. They've managed to get our flank, and I'm just hoping that we can continue to keep clunking. They go up to 7,800 damage now. Will I be able to turn around in time to be able to get one more shot against the Kampfpanzer or the T124? Who knows, maybe we'll even be able to get 2 more shots before this game goes. I can manage to overmatch the side, but I'm going to get what looks like an AP round right through the side of the turret there. 8,200 damage, baby! But oh dear, I get tracked in the side. The Kampfpanzer is going to keep flanking me, and the Rinoceronte is going to undoubtedly be able to get a shot in me. Maybe I could have turned a little bit better here. Well played to the Kampfpanzer, played well to manage to get me. But you know what? I'm taking you with me, Mr. Rinoceronte. That is 9,600 combined in the first half of this battle. And unfortunately, with players on my team like the Leopard saying, pure cheater game, No point to play. Buddy, I don't think you did 8,500 damage in this game, so I think I'm going to throw my toys out the pram and have a good cry, okay? But of course, it's not just one account that makes me want to cry inside World of Tanks. It's also going to be my second account. I'm playing Plays for Free now in my original Tier 10 tank. This was the first ever Tier 10 tank I got back in the day, and I can tell you the E100 on my free-to-play account has been making me want to tear my hair out. On the E100 on my main account, I like to use the 128mm caliber gun because it has really good damage per minute and it kind of just makes the E100 feel decent. I feel like when I use the 150, it's just a bad 60 TP. So I personally like to play with the 128 and play like this kind of juggernaut that just goes all in against its opponents and has the DPM to be able to overpower them, but still also have the alpha damage to outtrade things like a T110E5, for example. So I really like the 128mm. However, even though this game isn't going to show it, one thing that I've noticed on my free-to-play is that the lack of the premium consumable, the lack of that 5% accuracy, the lack of that 5% aim time, the lack of that 5% rate of fire, means that this gun just doesn't feel special free like it does when I'm on my main account. When I have all of those paid advantages, when I have all of the crew skills, when I have probably better equipment, the E100 just feels so much better with the 128. And so I've actually kind of gone full circle now to feel that I'm more consistent with the 150mm on the free-to-play account, where I drop the gun rammer and I use vents and I just make sure that those shots count. And if I need to, I load that wonderful 334 gold pen on the E100. So funny, E100, if you're free to play, I'd recommend the 150mm. If you're pay to win, I'd probably recommend the 128 because everything just scales and snowballs with the premium consumable and everything that you're going to be using on the tank. So well played to that M103. Definitely put me off with the way that they raised their gun there. I still should have found the shot because that's a huge weak point on top of the M103. A nice play by him to load that 340 heat to be able to go through us as well. So I'm just looking for a shot on the 263, but I've got to be careful here. I'm a little bit worried about this M103 just managing to farm up my lower plate, but luckily with an angled turret there, even his 340 heat pen isn't able to go through us. So that 268 makes an aggressive play. Looks like we damaged their engine, so that might as well be tracking them in this scenario. So I've got to get forwards here and hope this 268 isn't going to get caught out. I'm looking for a shot on the M103, and I just managed to track them. So that's 2 repair kits off our opponents. The 268 wants to go forwards again. Not recommend that, buddy, and he falls to the M103. Luckily, we can get a shot in through the side of the Object 430 on the enemy team. And now, suddenly, the E100 is on the back foot. We're down by 3,000 hit points, pretty much what damage we've done so far this game. But boy, does this tank feel still so meaty when you angle the armor like this and you avoid your opponents from being able to get your lower plate. It feels like a killer tank. Talk about killer, we just became one there, finishing off the Object 430 on the enemy team. Sorry, the 263, while the 430 just remains. But our opponents are just swarming over us one by one. Come on, buddy, let's get some more shots in. Oh, lovely shot right through the lower plate of the 705. Maybe there's a chance we can manage to come back into this game. Just 3.5 minutes into it, up to 4,000 damage and 4,000 damage blocked. And this STRV on the enemy team wants to try and make their way across to try and flank us. We're going to put an opportunistic shot in the side, which means that at least if they appear, they're only going to need one more shell. If we can hit one on that tank, or if one of my allies manages to hit them. But unfortunately, the E75 hits a gold round, the M103 hits a gold round, and I realize I can't leave this M103 here any longer. So I'm going to put the pressure on them. Now, I know they're firing heat, so I'm actually going to over-angle my tank, and they don't go through my tracks with that heat. That shows you how the side armor on the E100 is fat, and if you know that they're YOLOing heat, just angle at 45 degrees and frustrate your opponents. Unfortunately, the second one doesn't manage to frustrate them, but I guess they probably just went through my lower plate there. Even at an angle like that, it manages to go in. Now up to 5,500 damage, I realize I am in a fairly hopeless situation. But you know what? I'm going to try and take as many of you with me as I possibly can. Unfortunately, the 60 TP gets a shot into the side. Can we manage to get the E75 here? Will they get the back of our tank? They will indeed. What am I going to go after now? I'm going to go after the 60 TP, avoiding the artillery left, right, and center. It just wasn't to be. I put in pretty much every shot that I felt like I could here. I tried to block as much as I could. I'm not sure I could have been any more aggressive than I was. And unfortunately, 6,000 damage, free to play, and 4 kills. It's twice as many as the rest of my team combined in less than 5 minutes was not enough to take down this game of World of Tanks. And I can tell you, that while on my main account, it's frustrating to have a big carry and lose, my heart goes out to all of you who are still trying to grind vehicles. This was an E100 without many or any of the field mods, and it was during a 5 times experience weekend that we recently had. Oh my lord, it felt so torturous to lose games where possibly we could have gone and got 10,000 experience if we'd managed to win the battle, and that's a huge chunk towards getting a field mod. It's a huge chunk towards unlocking the 150mm on this vehicle, and it's a huge chunk towards me retaining sanity after playing this game for free with none of the paid advantages. So hopefully what this video shows today is that irrelevant of how hard you play, how aggressive you play, how well you think you play, whether you're getting 8,000 damage multiple times or smashing out enough to win 90% of your battles in the first few minutes in an E100 on your free-to-play account, it's just not quite enough. And this is why probably about 1 in 5, depending up to kind of like 3 out of 10 battles, if you're playing in a platoon, are unwinnable in World of Tanks. However, I will say that I mentioned this in Twitch chat a few weeks ago. I mentioned this on my stream a few weeks ago. And there was one gentleman in chat, 1 out of 5, more like 2 out of 5. And I hear what they're saying, but that's just not the case. There are people out there who can win 70% of their games solo. And if 2 out of 5 games are unwinnable, well, I guess those players truly are cheating. And if you want to know more about what games are actually winnable inside World of Tanks, I'd recommend checking out this video, where I do some statistical analysis to show you exactly that, and show you that there's really not that much of a difference between somebody who's a tomato and somebody who's a unicorn. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below, how do you deal with games in World of Tanks that just make you cry? And what was your biggest heartbreak in your World of Tanks memory? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.